Okay. Hello, my name is Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Hi, Nick. I'm going to be doing the coding kata tonight. For those of you who do not know what a coding kata is, it is, where's it gone? It is a practice, it's basically live coding with tests, and I will be solving a problem that I came across in work. I will be solving it live in front of you guys. And for you advanced guys, I'm sure you guys have done a kata before where you're like, I really want to do this kata. Oh, this would be an awesome kata. And then, like 2 days before, you're like, this is a terrible idea for a kata. And then you're like, I don't have time to find a new kata. This has to work. So this kata is, I think it'll be okay, but it is.
So this is a story of that kind of.
This is a story. This is a story of a boy kata and a girl kata. Okay. So this is a personal project of mine that I go to Yahoo Finance, and basically what I want to do is I want to take some data off of this screen. If you go to Yahoo Finance and you put in any ticker you want, like Apple or Microsoft, Twitter, which is going to be coming out
tomorrow,
you can get the statistics for the stock of your choice. So you know that the market cap of Apple is $468 billion. And so you can get all this data. You know that the number of shares outstanding of Apple is almost 1 billion. So what I wanted is I wanted to have a Ruby class that could go to this page, get the data, and give me statistics in a hash. In the hash, with the keys being these whatever's on the left side of this table here, and the values being the data themselves. So that's what we're going to do today.
So in effect, you're sort of doing the screen scraping version of what Leo showed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It is called Screen Scrape Kata. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the gong. Okay. So what I have here is a Rails project. It's a very empty Rails project. It has gems in it. It basically only has 2 files in it. I have one utility file called Yahoo Finance Client. That's what we'll be doing our coding. And I have one spec here called Yahoo Finance Client Spec. And these are the only 2 files that we'll be using in this Rails project. Okay, so the nice thing about this spec is I can actually, before I do any coding at all, I can actually figure out what I want the end result to be. What do I want my class to look like when I instantiate it and when I activate and get those statistics. So let's do that now. So first we'll need a client. And then for that client, we will call getStats. And we'll call that on a symbol. So we'll call it a ticker symbol. So AAPL is Apple. And we'll save the stats. And then we'll expect something like the stats of, if we activate the stats like a hash. So the market cap. So we expect that to equal whatever the market cap of Apple is today. 468 billion. So let's go ahead and run this test. So run that test. And we see that it fails. And it fails because our method getStats is not defined. So I'm going to go into the actual class itself here, and we'll define that. GetStats. And we'll return a hash because that's what we expect in the end. So when we run this test again, wrong number of arguments. Yep. So this has to take a symbol. And we'll run the test again. And we expected in our hash to get 468 billion, and we got 0. So we are on the right path. We have a class, we have a method that works, and we have a direct. We know what we want the end result to be. So from this point, I'm going to think about how I'm going to implement this. So I'm actually going to comment this out of this test here. And I'm going to think, okay, if I have a client and he's going to get stats, how is he going to do that? Well, the first thing he needs to do is he needs to get the HTML from the web. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll make a method here called getHTML, and we'll make a new client. That client will get HTML for a particular ticker. And then we'll expect the HTML to look like HTML in some way, so maybe it starts with doc type. Okay. So we'll run that test. And we fail because we have no method getHTML. So in our class, we're going to just go ahead and make that getHTML for any symbol. And this is pretty standard fare. I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in. To get HTML, you need a URL, obviously. So we're just going to throw that URL in there. And then you generally just use some library. I like to use HTTP party because I like to party.
Nice.
And that will give you a response. And then the body of that response is the HTML. For you new guys, if you don't know this, this is okay. But it's pretty standard fare. This is just one way, like really easy way to get HTML from the web page. And it's just all in this library. So let's go ahead and run that test. And that passes. And you notice the test took a little bit of time there. The reason is because when I run that test, it is actually going to the internet, grabbing that page, going to the Yahoo servers, coming back, and then doing my expect. So for you advanced guys, obviously you're going to want to stub and mock this, but I don't really have time to do that, so we're just going to keep the test as it is and grab it, because we're not going to run tests that often in this Kata, so we're going to just keep rolling with that. Okay, so I have HTML. Great. Okay, so let's think about what else my client needs to do. It needs to get these statistics, so it needs to get the HTML, it needs to figure out from the HTML what I want. And so what I want here are these. These will be my keys, and these will be my values. Okay? So I'm going to, let's make another test here. So I'm going to make a method called getKeys. And because we're using client here a lot, let's just move that to a let block. And we are going to want to get the keys from the client, get keys for a particular, let's say we already have the HTML. So we have the HTML because we already have that method. And we're going to get the keys from that HTML. And we expect, so the keys are going to be, the first one's going to be market cap, the second one's going to be enterprise value, the third will be trailing PE. So we're going to have a list of keys. So we're going to expect an array. So we're going to expect the first key to equal market cap. Okay? So we'll run that test. Oops.
What are you going to specify block?
Yeah, it should be in some sort of, it should be in its block. Okay, so we have no method like keys. So we'll make our method. And we could just return an array here. But basically what we're going to want to do is we have some HTML, and we want to parse that HTML. So in order to do that in Ruby, we're going to use this standard tool that most people use. It's called Nokogiri. And I'm going to go over that really quickly. So if you have some HTML, let's say you have HTML like this. here's some beautiful HTML. You have an H1 tag, hello, and you have some paragraphs tags. So if you use something like Nokugiri, you can go in and you can actually extract data from this HTML. So I'm going to show you how to do that, or how that works, I guess. So I'm going to go to Rails console here, and let's make HTML. So I'm going to put this in a string. Okay, so so this is my HTML string. There's nothing special. It's just a string. We can create a Nokugiri doc. And Nokugiri, for those of you who don't know, Nokugiri is it's a Japanese blade, and apparently it's good for like slashing through thick bamboo woods or something. So you can think of Nokugiri as taking that gnarly, disgusting HTML and giving you something of value out of it. So now we have this doc object. We can call CSS on that, and we can pull. You can use HTML tags. So we can say, so this CSS method on this doc is super useful. You will use it all the time. So you can pull. So if you remember in our HTML, here's my H1 tag, and the text associated with that is hello world. So if we call doc.css and we get an H1 tag, you can see here it says it will point out that the text is hello world, and you can just query what the text is itself. Another like really significant, super awesome feature is you can query by CSS classes. So here I have 3 paragraph tags. They all have the class of fruit. And so if I query by the class of fruit, and you notice it's a CSS class because it's preceded by a period, then it will come back with 3 elements. And if I wanted to get the text on each of those elements, then there we have it. So Nokugiri is like a pretty amazing tool, and you'll probably be using it if you're not already. So what we're going to do is we have the HTML here. We're going to go ahead and create a Nokugiri doc. And now that we have that Nokugiri doc, and we have our HTML, we have to figure out how are we going to select our keys here. So what I'm going to do is, one thing I really like to do when I write tests and when I write code is I like to play around in the actual code. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up Phi right here. And I'm going to run this test. And so when I run the test, Phi console opens up, and I can go ahead and play around. I can look at the document itself, which is pretty big. And I can say, okay, document, do you have something, do you have a special CSS class? So now that I have the Nokugiri document, let's play around. Let's try to find what classes we want in this page. And so a tool I use for this is called Selector Gadget. It's a Firefox plugin, and it is like super sick. So you can see at the top here, Selector Gadget. And as soon as I click that, I can go to any element on the page, and I can click on it, and Selector Gadget down here at the very bottom will tell me, it will highlight, it will tell me what element that is. That's a table head element, and then it will highlight all the other table head elements. So let's say I want to select this, and one of these 2, and this. And so you can see at the bottom, if I wanted to select all of those elements, Selector Gadget actually tells me, hey, these are the CSS classes that you need. Similarly, we can clear this. Similarly, we could say, okay, give me this, but not this one. So you do that by pressing Shift. And then Selector Gadget will say, okay, you want H3, but only the in-child 3, or in-child 5. So let's ask Selector Gadget, how do I get my keys? So if I click on this, it tells me why function table head 1, and you can see that all of the keys that I want are already selected. So let's go ahead and copy that. I will put that in my pry console there. And let's make that a little bit readable. So you can see, as soon as I do that, I put that CSS class in NoCodeQuery, and I get all the keys that I want. Sweet. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Go back into the code. We will doc CSS and grab that class name. Grab. And these are in fact elements. They're NoCodeQuery elements. And so in order to get the actual text, the keys that we want, we can just go ahead and grab the text from those. Okay, so let's run our test. See what happens. Okay, we have some success. So we expected to get market cap. Instead, we got market cap parentheses intraday 5 : So we're doing pretty good. We need to clean up the text. If you notice these keys here, some of them have a little bigger. Some of them have parentheses. Some of them have superscripts. They all have colons at the end. And we don't really care about what's in the parentheses. So let's just go ahead and take that text and we'll clean it up so that our test will pass. In fact, let's go ahead and we'll make a new function and a new test for this. A new method. Okay, so we'll make a new method. Clean text. And so we have some dirty text. And we expect, well, we have our client first. We want to clean the text, the dirty text. And we expect this clean text to equal just market cap by itself. None of this other stuff. Okay, so let's run that test. So I'm just going to run that test by issuing only line 27. Okay, we fail because we don't have that method. So I'm going to make that method. And let's just return the text. Okay, so we're still failing because we haven't cleaned the text. So let's just go ahead and clean it. It shouldn't be too difficult. We have 3 big issues here. We have a colon, we have a number, and we have something in the parentheses. So let's do those easiest to hardest. So we'll sub out the colon. We will sub out any digits. And if you know regular expressions, the way you can sub out anything that's in parentheses by doing, if you have parentheses and you have a dot and a star, the parentheses represent themselves. The dot represents any character and the star represents 0 or 1, 0 or more occurrences of that. However, the parentheses are special characters in regex, so you need to escape them. So it's going to look like this. This is going to be our regex. Okay. And then we'll just go ahead and, well, let's just go ahead and see what happens. Okay. We're still failing, but we're much closer. We expected market cap, but now we got market cap space. Pretty good. Just strip the spaces off. And now we have passing test. Okay. So now that we are able to clean the keys, let's go ahead and run this test for get keys. So I'm going to only run this test. And we can see it's failing because we have dirty text. We need to clean that text. So we'll do that in the code. And we'll just clean text. When we get this text here, we'll just go ahead and clean that. And run our test again. And we have a pass. Okay, so we're pretty close, but we have the keys now. We just need the values. So again, we'll just use Selector Gadget. Click on our value here, and it tells us that all of these values have class yFunctionTableData1. So we'll use that. And get value, we're going to make a new function. Actually, we should make a test first. We must fail before we can succeed.
You have the CSS class.
I know, no, it's not forever. We're going to get values. And we are expecting the first value to equal, right, the first value should equal whatever's first in this table, so 468 billion. Okay, we have a test. Let's go ahead and run it. It's on line 28. And it fails, not surprisingly. So we'll go ahead and make that. This is basically very similar to our getKeys function. Values instead. And instead of this CSS selector, we will need to use this one. Oh, yeah. It's all the pressure from being up here. I forgot. And we have values, and these values do not need to be cleaned because they're already good to go. So we can run that test, and we get a success. Okay, so let's run the full test suite. And we have everything passing, but if you remember, we did comment out basically the one function that we did want. So we want the client to be able to get stats, and then we want to return a hash. But luckily, we already have an array and an array, so we just need to combine those two arrays into a hash. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will get HTML for our symbol. We will get the keys. We will get the values. And then we will convert the key and value array into a hash.
You're not passing the right parameters.
Oh, thank you.
Values and symbol.
Yep. Radio. Thank you.
And this work.
So, I mean, there's many ways to do this. Sometimes I prefer it just to be more explicit than implicit, just because it's more lines of code, but it makes sense what it is. So that returns the hash. Let's go ahead and see if our test passes. Fail. Define method value.
Values, yeah.
Oh, thanks. Dun, 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 dun. We have all passing tests. We have a successful Kata. And I have 13 seconds left.
Very nice. So I guess that 5 minutes.
Yes, question.
Okay. This code that was written and tested will only work for Yahoo, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm,
I want
exactly.
to make sure that I understand.
Yeah, if you want to do Market Watch or Google, you have to parse that HTML differently.
I'm sorry, it'll only work for the symbol, Apple.
Oh yes. That was
somewhere.
hard coded. Yes.
You did hard
Good,
code
and
that.
I put that in there as an Easter egg. Thank you for finding it. Very nice.
That's almost a nice cover. That was almost good.
Yes.
I have a comment about your spec. Can you bring it up?
You got it.
At the very top of it,
Yeah.
where you did let client equals whatever.
Oh yeah.
That
Whoops.
client equals is just.
Yeah,
not doing
that's
anything.
filler. Another Easter egg.
Oh, while you're talking about that line, I like to just use subjects because that implicitly creates Yahoo Finance client.u, so you could avoid online. But I guess a lot of people like to be more explicit about
So
it.
you would just put subject everywhere.
I guess, or you could say, I think there's
That's
some better
right.
ones.
That's frowned on. You can use subject with a name, which makes it virtually identical to let with a name.
So what would you do? Just like this subject with a block?
I think you just pass parentheses client. There.
You just change letters.
Wait, like this?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, that doesn't get you anything.
On line 4, if you just changed let to subject, I guess that would
Oh, really?
But, no, that doesn't get what you're saying. Yeah. Oh yeah, the other thing I noticed in the green text is mutating the string that you passed into it.
Is that right?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're using the lens,
Uh-huh.
so
And
the
is it-
color will be suppressed.
Well, you should know not to pass. I mean, you should copy your string before you pass it in to this method. That was in the documentation, but I didn't have time to.
Go to the
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
there's like quite a bit of refactoring that could be done with the code that you wrote.
You know, I could put this up on GitHub. Could be the next Kata.
Yeah, cool.
And then more general comments about how you're finding the values,
Uh-huh.
and it's quite likely to get out of sync with the keys if there happens to be one extra Y-func table data or one missing one. So if you were if you had more than 30 minutes and wanted to do this seriously to actually make a lot of money on the stock market, like I would want to do it in a more reliable way where you actually know that the value is the sibling element of the key.
Like
Yeah.
in the same table row or something.
Yeah, in the same row.
Yeah, certainly. That's actually a lot trickier. Well, I mean, you can grab the table, and but yeah, it's a pain.
Well, what you can do is you could grab each row in the tables you care about,
Mhm.
and then walk each row and parse those on the class just within that row, and ensure that you've got a value on both sides. And if you don't, kick that row out.
Can you just use an XML?
Then you'd only build up a hash that had keys and values that were present at the time that you grabbed the
In
hash.
fact, he is just using an XML parser. It's called local theory.
Yeah.
And
That-
so
but
there's
you
all
can't
sorts of
iterate.
functions for going through
Yeah, that's
children
right.
and siblings on
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a table,
values.
can't you just navigate
It's not
down the
huge.
sibling like TRs and just pull out the T?
Yeah, certainly.
Right, the problem here is that he doesn't really have the element siblings kind of work, but you're better off grabbing each row and then
Yeah.
diving into each row with the classes that you know should be there, get the values from them, and ensure that both have non-blank values.
That's really interesting. I mean, that's an interesting point. I know that NoKugiri can sort. Like, you can ask it to sort your nodes in the order in which they're found. So I'm not sure. Like, in one way, like this, if you do that, it could definitely break if they change the page, right, or whatever. But so can the other ways. You know, that the way that you mentioned can also break if they change the page. Because now it's like, well, they changed the name of the sibling class, so. You know, so it's like
Right, but you always have the with all screen scraping. If the structure of the HTML changes,
yeah, then you're screwed.
then you're broken. So you always have that problem. So I think we can leave that for a different set of issues, right? In terms of which is what happens if you have a differing number. of table data ones versus table data twos, such that your hash doesn't match up.
Right.
Right? The method I said, which is grab each row and evaluate each row for its validity and kick out the rows that don't show as valid, you would then always have a correctly mapped set of keys and values.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with
What
that.
those are, you can't really say, but you'd have a correct.
We're out of time. All right. Next one's job.
Yeah.